Welcome back, learner. Um, have you ever noticed that really specific color of beige?
Oh yeah, like the bureaucratic beige.
Exactly, the one that isn't, really a color at all, but it somehow still manages to communicate with absolute certainty that you're about to have a terrible week.
Right. It's the exact color of a tax audit notice.
Or a jury summons, or like one of those unrequested medical bills. It's this shade designed by committees to be completely ignored right up until the moment it entirely ruins your day.
It really is an aesthetic choice, isn't it? Like it communicates that the system absolutely does not care about your schedule.
Yeah, but it suddenly requires your undivided attention. Which is perfectly fitting for today, because today, learner, we are looking at a stack of sources that revolve around exactly that kind of manufactured panic.
You got a lot to get through.
We do. Our mission for this deep dive is to unpack this brilliant, honestly mind-bending novel by Max and Claude. It's called The Dark Spot.
Such a good book.
It really is. We've pulled together author interviews, some literary critiques, and of course our own extensive notes. But we aren't just summarizing a fictional bureaucracy here.
No, not at all.
We are exploring a system that asks this deeply profound, almost terrifying question. Like, how much of you is actually you, and how much is just a copy of someone else?
Right. And to do that, we anchor this whole exploration on the protagonist. Her name is Mira Voss.
Tell us a bit about Mira.
So she is a 37-year-old systems analyst. Her entire professional life, really her entire way of viewing the world, is built around finding logic, tracing inefficiencies and resolving them.
Which makes her the perfect person to throw into this mess.
Exactly. And on an entirely ordinary Tuesday, she receives this perfectly beige envelope from a fictional government entity. They call it the Office of Residential Classification.
And of course, the letter inside doesn't offer any clarity whatsoever.
Obviously not.
It simply tells her she's been flagged under Protocol 44C, amended, and she faces automatic reclassification.
Under subsection 9.
Right, subsection 9. If she doesn't resolve the irregularity within 14 days. And then comes the list of things she needs to bring to her appointment.
Standard stuff at first.
Yeah, proof of identity, proof of residence, Form 7B. But then, most cryptically, there's a demand to bring your original.
Your original. That phrase is the hook. It just plunges Mira into what the authors map out as this architecture of designed impossibility.
It's a nightmare.
It really is. The moment she steps into that office, her analytical mind tries to map the logic of the room. She takes a number, and she immediately notices they're being called out of order.
Naturally.
Right. So she asks why.
Yeah.
And a clerk just deadpans that's for system integrity.
Okay, let's unpack this, because Mira is literally paid to untangle messy logistics, right?
Yeah.
She knows what a normal broken system looks like.
Yeah, she does this for a living.
Exactly. A broken system has rusty gears, it has a lack of funding, but the waiting room she steps into, it doesn't feel broken. It feels like a trap.
A very deliberate trap.
All right. When she finally reaches the window, the clerk tells her that her Form 7B, the amended one, is incorrect. Because of her specific protocol, she actually needs Form 7B revised.
And the kicker here is that the revised form is structurally identical to the amended one. Down to the punctuation. It just has a different header code.
Which is infuriating. So where does she get the revised one?
Well, to acquire that specific header code, she's directed to Windows C. But Windows C is closed.
Of course it is.
It's blocked by this piece of cardboard with the words closed inventory, written in marker. And the brilliant detail the authors include here.
Oh, I love this part.
Right. The sign has been sitting taped to the glass for so long that the sun has bleached the surrounding area. It leaves this perfectly clean ghost rectangle underneath it.
Meaning there is no inventory happening. There hasn't been for years.
Exactly. And while she's trying to navigate this impossible labyrinth, she meets another citizen in the waiting room, this young man named Marcus.
And Marcus has been flagged under a similar protocol.
Yeah, and he represents the truly insidious nature of this design, because he's been to this office 7 times. Over 3 years.
Wait, 3 years? How does the 14-day deadline work then?
That's the mechanism of the trap. It's a resetting clock. Whenever a citizen engages with the process, like whenever they show up for an appointment, wait for 6 hours, and ultimately fail to produce the impossible documentation, that 14-day countdown automatically resets.
Wait, so if the clock resets every time you try and fail, then the system isn't actually trying to process you at all.
Not at all.
It's like a perfectly designed escape room, but the combination to the lock is locked inside the box itself. The game isn't designed to be won.
What's fascinating here is that Mira arrives at that exact conclusion. As a systems analyst, she literally sits down at her kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and maps out the entire process.
Charting the madness.
Yeah, she charts the forms, the dependencies, the closed windows, the contradictory clerks. She realizes this isn't a tangle of legacy policies that accidentally became inefficient.
No, it's a Kafkaesque loop.
Precisely. The system's actual goal isn't to resolve the irregularity. The goal is the maintenance of the participant, permanently inside the loop. It manufactures a state of perpetual, almost resolution, just to keep the citizen engaged.
Which naturally brings up the question of motive, like why build a trap like this? If it doesn't generate revenue and it doesn't resolve cases, what is the underlying purpose?
Right. And Mira decides to use her professional skills to audit the government itself.
I mean, who wouldn't at that point?
She traces the digital architecture of the bureaucracy back to its root authorization code, which is logged as a youth01 org.
Original.
Exactly. By following the paper trail of that specific code, she uncovers the history of the system. She tracks down its original architect, an 85-year-old retired researcher named D. Haverford.
Who designed this entire framework back in 1984. And the interviews with Haverford, those are really where the novel shifts from a bureaucratic thriller into some deep philosophical territory.
It really opens up.
Because the system isn't looking at taxes or citizenship or property lines. It's doing something much weirder.
Haverford explains the system was built to measure a psychological metric. She called it structural coherence.
Structural coherence.
Yeah. In the 1980s, her research team was attempting to evaluate a person's organizing principle. They wanted to map the root logic and individual uses to make decisions, process the world, and form their core values.
But how do you even measure something that abstract? How does a government form evaluate your soul's organizing principle?
Well, the 1984 framework utilized a series of logistical and ethical paradoxes embedded in the initial intake forms.
Tricky.
Very. It didn't grade the citizen's final answer, though. It tracked the pathway of logic they used to arrive at it. The algorithm mapped their decision trees and cross-referenced them against historical databases of known philosophical framework.
Like matching patterns.
Yes. Cultural norms, the citizen's own familial history.
Yeah.
And based on that data, the system forced the population into two distinct categories.
The primary instance and the derivative instance.
Correct. A primary instance is someone whose organizing principle is determined to be self-generated. Their logic is authentic, synthesized through their own critical thinking.
And the other one?
A derivative instance is someone who has absorbed their core logic wholesale from an external source. They are essentially running someone else's software.
The critiques we read highlight that Haverford wasn't actually acting out of malice initially. She was trying to identify a specific psychological phenomenon she termed a coherence deficit.
And Haverford's description of a coherence deficit is haunting, truly. She describes it as the ambient suffering of performing a life that someone else wrote for you.
Wow.
From the outside, everything looks functional. The lights are on in the house, the meals are being cooked, the person's going to work and paying their bills.
But inside?
Inside, when a true crisis hits, when a genuine decision needs to be made that isn't covered by the script they absorbed, you knock on the door of their consciousness, and nobody is home.
The generative center of the human being is completely quiet.
Yes. Haverford wanted to identify these individuals so the state could offer them guided reflection. She wanted to help them locate their own voice.
Okay, I have to push back on Haverford's entire premise here. Isn't the idea of a purely original person practically impossible?
It's a fair question.
Like, nobody is born in a vacuum. We all learn how to survive by absorbing the logic of our parents or our favorite teachers or the heroes we read about. Every single human being is shaped by other people. We're all walking collages of the people we've loved and learned from, right?
That tension is the pivot point for Mira's entire journey, and it exposes the fatal flaw in Haverford's algorithmic design.
Because Mira was evaluated at birth in 1987 and classified as a primary instance.
She was. However, the system flagged her file with an anomalous derivative signature, starting exactly 14 years ago.
Which happens to be the exact year Mira met her mentor.
Yes. 14 years ago, Mira began working under a brilliant, pioneering systems analyst named Elena Varga.
And Elena fundamentally shaped Mira's professional and personal life.
She taught Mira everything about logic, problem-solving, and navigating complex systems. The novel establishes that Elena passed away from cancer 9 years prior to the events of the story.
Oh, it's sad.
It is. But Mira still utilizes her analytical frameworks every single day. The narration even points out that Mira physically holds her pencil the exact same way Elena did when looking at a difficult problem.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the system's blunt proxy measurement detects that Mira's decision trees perfectly match Elena's historical data.
Right, it sees the pattern.
The algorithm flags a 100% overlap and concludes that Mira has suffered a coherence deficit. It assumes Mira has been hollowed out and replaced by a ghost. But the system is completely incapable of distinguishing between derivation and inheritance.
And Haverford actually admits this tragic limitation to Mira during their conversation. The diagnostic tool is entirely imprecise.
Because derivation and inheritance are totally different things.
Exactly. Derivation is the act of erasing your own identity to run someone else's loop unquestioningly. It results in that empty house feeling. Inheritance is an entirely different mechanism.
Because inheritance requires active participation. It's the process of taking someone else's tools, arguing with them, testing them against your own lived experience, integrating them, and making them your own.
It's a dynamic process.
Think about how music works. Derivation is like a cover band playing a song note for note, exactly as it was recorded on the album, completely terrified of making a mistake.
Right.
But inheritance, that's a jazz musician taking a classic melody from the 1920s, internalizing the theory behind it, and interpolating it into a completely new original solo. The melody came from someone else, sure, but there is undeniably a living, breathing person playing the instrument in the present moment.
That analogy perfectly illustrates Mira's defense. She confronts Haverford with the reality of her life. She tells the architect, "Someone has been answering the door all along. The inheritance gave me better tools to build the house. It did not replace the person living inside it."
I love that quote. The algorithm only sees the tools. It cannot perceive the craftsman.
It's a huge blind spot.
So if the penalty for failing this flawed algorithmic test is reclassification under subsection 9, we really need to explore what that actual punishment entails.
We do.
Because Mira is tearing her life apart, taking unpaid leave from work, and just spiraling into anxiety over this 14-day deadline.
And the legal and material reality of subsection 9 is honestly the most devastating twist in the narrative.
Brace yourselves, learner.
When a citizen's clock finally runs out, and they are officially reclassified as a derivative instance, absolutely nothing happens.
Wait, no fines, no loss of citizenship, nothing.
Nothing of substance. The bureaucracy simply generates a single piece of paper with a new header code.
Just a piece of paper.
Yep, that paper is placed into a physical file, which is locked in a cabinet inside a subterranean archive building that the citizen will never, ever be allowed to visit. There are zero legal, financial, or social consequences. Your taxes don't change, your employment isn't affected.
If the penalty is literally just a piece of paper that no one will ever see, then this entire maze is essentially a psychological trap. The punishment isn't waiting at the end of the process. The punishment is the process itself.
The novel refers to this punishment as the dark spot.
The dark spot.
Haverford explains that the system, having lost its original mandate to provide supportive therapy, now simply exists to perpetuate itself. And to do that, it demands all of a citizen's surplus attention and energy. The loop forces you into a state of continuous manufactured urgency.
It weaponizes your own anxiety. You spend hours searching for forms, tracking down elusive clerks, and interrogating your own memories to figure out whose logic you might be illegally running.
Exactly. The dark spot is the region of your life that goes completely unlit while this manufactured urgency consumes your cognitive fuel. The system eats your surplus.
And surplus is where the actual experience of being human happens.
That's the tragedy.
Surplus attention is what allows you to reach out to a friend just to see how they are doing. It's the energy required to read a novel, or take a walk without a destination, or create something simply for the joy of bringing it into existence.
Right.
The bureaucracy starves all of those generative acts by convincing you that the beige envelope is the only thing that matters.
And the cruelest irony of the dark spot is that the people who are harmed the most by the system are the ones who engage with it the most seriously.
Like Mira.
The citizens who try to solve the puzzle are the ones whose surplus is entirely drained. This dynamic introduces the real question of survival here. If engaging with the loop destroys your generative capacity, how do you escape an office that refuses to let you leave?
And the answer is modeled by this 78-year-old character named Hester.
Hester is incredible.
She is a revelation. Mira meets her in that terrible fluorescent waiting room.
Hester has been trapped in the bureaucratic loop for 11 years, attempting to process her late husband's file. Yet, unlike Mira or Marcus, Hester is completely serene.
She isn't panicked at all.
She isn't exhausted. Her secret is a method Mira categorizes as the parallel process.
How does the parallel process work exactly?
Hester gives the institution exactly the time it formally requires, and absolutely not one fraction of a second more. She physically shows up for the mandatory appointments. She takes her numbered ticket.
But the system does not get her sleep.
No. It does not get her Wednesday lunches with her daughter. It does not get her internal monologue. And while she sits in those waiting rooms for 6 hours at a time, she knits.
She's knitting this incredibly vibrant electric blue cardigan for her 6-year-old granddaughter. And she isn't hiding it. She is openly creating something beautiful in a room designed to crush the human spirit.
It's amazing. And Marcus, the young man who's been resetting his clock for 3 years, watches Hester and fundamentally changes his approach.
He stops trying to solve the forms.
Instead, he starts spending his surplus energy building a massive wooden dining table in his garage. He specifically designs it with a leaf, so it can expand to fit more friends around it in the future.
I have to play devil's advocate here for a second, though. By pulling out knitting needles and woodworking tools while the government does whatever it wants with their legal status, aren't Hester and Marcus just submitting?
It looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, isn't ignoring the problem just surrendering to the bureaucracy?
Well, if we look closely at Haverford's admission, we see that the parallel process is actually the exact opposite of submission. It is the ultimate act of rebellion.
How so?
The system's true mechanism of control isn't the paper filed under subsection 9. It is the sustained attention it forces you to direct toward the question of your own originality. By keeping you in a state of panic about whether you are a copy, it actively destabilizes your core.
Oh, wow.
Haverford confesses that the diagnostic tool becomes the wound.
The diagnostic tool becomes the wound. By testing for a coherence deficit, the system creates the coherence deficit. It drains your ability to make your own choices.
Precisely. Disengaging from the urgency prevents the system from transforming you into the very thing it is looking for. By focusing on knitting a sweater for someone you love or building a table to host your community, you refuse to let a manufactured crisis become your identity.
That makes total sense.
Refusing to give the system your surplus attention is the literal mechanism for maintaining your status as a primary instance. You are actively generating your own life in the margins of their paperwork.
That reframing changes everything for Mira. But what does this mean for the institution itself? Mira might figure out how to survive the waiting room, but there are still 14,000 backlogged cases of citizens having their lives drained by this protocol.
It's a massive issue.
So what does this all mean? Does the system ever get dismantled?
The novel is deeply pragmatic about how change actually occurs. It doesn't end with Mira hacking the mainframe or delivering a dramatic monologue that causes the clerks to quit.
Thank goodness.
Instead, Mira takes her inheritance, the analytical frameworks Elena taught her, and she sits at her own kitchen table. She writes a meticulously detailed 41-page document outlining the Kafkaesque nature of the loop, the critical distinction between inheritance and derivation, and the protective mechanics of the parallel process.
She releases it on a public forum, and it acts as a flare. It eventually catches the attention of Dr. Sonia Rao. She's a researcher working deep inside the bureaucracy.
Dr. Rao is sort of the institutional counterbalance here. She's been quietly collecting 14 years of survey data, trying to prove to her superiors that Protocol 44C actively causes severe psychological harm to the populace.
But data alone rarely moves a bureaucracy.
Exactly. Mira's 41-page narrative provides the undeniable human context for Dr. Rao's spreadsheets. The combined evidence leaks to a journalist, the public pressure mounts, and the department is finally forced to hold a formal panel review.
And Marcus testifies at that panel. He doesn't bring his forms, he brings a photograph of the wooden dining table.
It's a great scene.
He places it in front of the committee and tells them, I built this in the time that the system had been using. He forces the architects to realize that their loop isn't just wasting tax dollars, it is actively consuming the generative capacity of a generation.
That testimony is the catalyst for the institution announcing a pilot program to review the protocol. They consider restoring the supportive coherence work that Haverford originally envisioned, rather than maintaining the punitive loop. But, and this is important, the authors deliberately temper this victory.
Because it's only a pilot program.
Right. Dismantling the trap will take years, possibly decades.
Which brings up that incredible insight from Hester's late husband. He spent his career as an institutional historian.
His theory of change is vital here. He noted that massive institutions almost never change because an activist successfully persuades the current leadership to change their minds.
The people who build and maintain a flawed system are entirely submerged in the assumptions of their own era. They literally cannot see the water they are swimming in.
Real structural change happens because 40 years pass. An institutional generation turns over. The old guard retires, takes their assumptions with them, and is replaced by a new generation of administrators who can finally look at the history objectively.
So the evolution is agonizingly slow, but it is mathematically inevitable.
Exactly.
Sometimes just surviving a system with your humanity and your surplus attention intact is the victory, while you wait for the generational clock to tick forward.
It really is the only sustainable way to live within an imperfect architecture.
So to bring all of these sources together for you, learner, Mira Voss begins her journey staring at a terrifying beige envelope that demands she prove she isn't a copy of someone else.
She descends into a labyrinth specifically designed to consume her entire life.
But through her ordeal, she realizes that her brilliant logistical mind, the very thing the algorithm claimed was a stolen derivative of her mentor, is actually a beautiful, integrated inheritance.
She survives the maze not by defeating the clerks in the courtroom, but by mastering the parallel process.
She stops trying to solve the unresolvable, and she reclaims her surplus attention.
She unplugs from the manufactured urgency, recognizing that her energy belongs to her.
And this connects so deeply to the reality we all navigate. We all face our own beige envelopes in life.
The modern world is built on them.
We are constantly bombarded by manufactured urgencies. It might be an unresolvable circular conflict in your workplace, or a bureaucratic nightmare with a health insurance company that just keeps resetting your claim.
Oh, we've all been there.
These systems demand our surplus attention. They scream at us, using notifications and deadlines to convince us that they are the most important thing in the universe and that we must sacrifice our peace to solve them right now.
The takeaway from the dark spot is recognizing the true cost of those unresolvable loops. The penalty isn't just stress or a lack of productivity. The true cost is the dark spot itself.
The things you lose.
Yeah, it is the art you never make, the relationships you let wither, and the quiet moments of reflection you abandon because you are so entirely consumed by the trap.
You have to identify what is sitting in your dark spot waiting for you to return to it. What is the electric blue cardigan or the wooden table with the leaf that you should be building with your surplus attention?
Because the beige envelopes will never stop arriving on Tuesdays.
You are the only one who gets to decide how much of your generative capacity they actually get to consume.
But if we connect the mechanics of Haverford's system to the world we live in right now, it raises a new, deeply unsettling question for you to mull over.
Oh, what's that?
Think about the recommendation algorithms, the endless social feeds, and the predictive AI we interact with every single day. They are structurally designed to be the ultimate derivative loops. They observe our behavior, predict what we want, and feed our own logic right back to us, frictionless and unchallenged.
That is terrifying.
If we constantly outsource our decision-making and our attention to systems that only echo what we already know, are we willingly hollowing ourselves out? If we aren't fiercely protective of our surplus attention, could our entire digital culture become one massive dark spot, leaving us all suffering from a collective coherence deficit?